Rise and shine. This is your morning Buzzcast for Thursday, November 20th. I'm Austin Karp. We had a fantastic day on Wednesday at our Dealmakers event. Lots of great information. Here to help me break it all down, my SBJ colleagues, Rob Schaefer, Bret McCormick, and Joe Lemire. Rob, I want to start with you. What was your biggest takeaway from the event this year?
Yeah, great day programming yesterday, Austin. I thought our opening panel of the day was a great one with Heather Carrots of Third Space Capital, Jason Wright, the former Commanders president, now head of investments, project level at Ariel Investments, and Kara Nortman of the Monarch Collective. A really great kind of level set conversation on the state of the industry, hit on topics like the value that firms like Third Space are finding in pick and shovel businesses, kind of in and around sports and live events, staging, lighting, things like that, other avenues that folks can look to kind of take advantage of the tailwinds behind the industry as a whole. And then, of course, conversations about institutional investing. Jason and Kara were particularly insightful on the unique value prop of women's sports and the reputability of women's athletes and sponsorship and things of that nature. So that was a really great conversation to kick it off. We then had Samir Ahuja, Jordy Leisure, and Jeb Terry that kind of gave the tech entrepreneurial perspective and how they're scaling their offerings, which are obviously focused on a few different levels of fan engagement, from youth sports to immersive live viewing of events. So I thought that was a great level set for the day that led into takeaways from some of the afternoon sessions.
Rob, you mentioned pick and shovel. That is a term I had not heard before. What was she referring to when she mentioned that?
Yeah, so I mentioned it also, the kind of the example of staging lighting in a venue, right? I actually hadn't heard this phrase either, but Heather used it a few times during the session. It basically refers to companies that support a booming industry, which I think we can all agree sports and live events is right now.
Bret McCormick, what was your big takeaway?
Yeah, I had back-to-back panels on mixed-use development. I would say the big takeaway is that mixed-use development made Dealmakers this year. I've kind of advocated for mixed use to be in front of this crowd, and it makes a lot of sense this year because the investors that attend this kind of event are heavily looking at this, around sports venues right now. So the first one was focused on everything leading up to a development opening, and the second was focused on how to generate returns after they're built. Takeaway from the first one was definitely having a good process in the early stages. I mean, we spoke for about a quarter of the panel about just how not to get off on the wrong foot or like screw one of these immensely time and money consuming projects, how not to screw it up like from the start. And then also, we talked about the importance of public-private partnerships and the partnerships between team and developers. It was a really good panel. The second one, which was advertised on a billboard in Times Square, which I have to give
That's a true story.
Thanks to Jeff Marks from Innovative Partnerships Group for that. I sent that picture all over my family group chat. These developments need to be flexible and be able to adjust to real estate changes over time. And the sponsorship opportunity is huge, but it's a bit different than what you find in venues. So one example Jeff gave was an elevator company using a mixed-use development as basically a showroom for its elevators, while also those elevators were used throughout the development. So kind of offers a bit of a different opportunity than you get from just signage in a venue, which is what Swartz has traditionally done.
I heard you chime in there, but let's go to Joe Lemire. What was your big takeaway?
I think the focus on international investing really stood out. It started with Tom Ricketts earlier in the day. And first of all, I don't think I had realized or appreciated the fact that his family has now been the owners of the Cubs for 16 years, certainly growing into like real stewards, longtime owners of that franchise. And while to piggyback on what Bret was talking about, he spoke extensively on the mixed-use development around Wrigley Field and how that spun off into marquee development. He spoke about the success they've had with their regional sports network. One detail that he shared that hadn't been reported before was that Marquee has over 100,000 streaming subscriptions, which is a large number for in-market. Mike Mazzio has written about how the San Diego Padres, who are the leader among the teams supported by the MLB broadcast group. Then Tom Ricketts spoke about the opportunities abroad. He mentioned offhand that Mexico is the 9th largest television market in the world, which suggested that he had put some real time into thinking about that. He is the chairman of the MLB's International Committee. They've played some games in London and Mexico, and they certainly have played in Korea and Japan. But he said that he had a real eye toward the way that other leagues have played even more games, the NFL especially, and how MLB could benefit from replicating that model. He also added that India might be the largest untapped market, certainly acknowledging that it could take a while for that to come to fruition, but anyone who saw the $1 Million Arm movie will understand that, hey, there might be some athletes from cricket who might have some opportunities in baseball. At least that's the thinking there. And then I hosted a panel later with a few executives who spend quite a bit of time working overseas. Brett Parker of Legends Global, Sam Porter of Apollo Sports Capital, and Jeff Roth of Bruin Capital. Most notable was that Sam was making his first public appearance since Apollo Sports became the controlling owner of Atletico Madrid in La Liga. And he spoke about the opportunities there. They have their own sports capital district nearby, plus just a great franchise, great stadium. Porter had owned some franchises in Mexico and Colombia previously. Certainly, Atletico Madrid is more of in the heavyweight class, a likely Champions League contender, but fascinating to learn about what goes into making a big deal like that.
I got to say, my big takeaway was the final session that we had. Our boss, Abe Madcore, he interviewed NBA Deputy Commissioner Mark Tatum, specifically looking at the NBA's efforts in Europe. What are their plans there? What are they going to do? What is possible? They focused on so many aspects there. Basketball, the second most popular sport in Europe, and they want to take advantage of that. They think there is a lot of growth opportunity at the professional level. First off, they got to get some more NBA-ready arenas, something that the NBA has really done well here in the U.S. Brett, you know that better than anybody. So there are some really big markets that are right for those sorts of arenas in big cities.
And Brett Parker of Legends even chimed in saying how few world-class concert venues there are in Europe, and Mark Tatum talked about the real estate opportunity there, and that's certainly an eye toward filling these buildings. The NBA Europe schedule is probably a little bit shorter than the average NBA schedule of 41 home games, so you need to have that other entertainment and other tenants coming on in, and this provides a real opportunity to build those.
Joe, you're absolutely right. And also, they're trying to cooperate as best they can with EuroLeague to be complementary as best they can. But I loved some of the opportunities that Mark talked about. What if we could have, a tournament in Europe among some of these big clubs? You recognize them from the soccer side, an AC Milan, an FC Barcelona. But these clubs, and I mean the broader sense of the term, could have basketball teams. They win a certain tournament or they qualify and they come and they play. This is from Mark Tatum. They play in the NBA Cup, the Emirates NBA Cup that's in the U.S., have a mix of NBA teams and some European teams. I think that will be incredibly successful, incredibly popular to do something really unique here in the United States with those sorts of teams.
Luka Doncic started his career with Real Madrid. How great would it be for him to play them again?
So many of these players that are coming over. If you check out some of these European games, they are just massively popular. You got flares in the sidelines. Like, yes, that's something that Tatum talked about. You have to make more fan-friendly. Maybe having flares in the stadium isn't good for a 5-year-old that wants to go see a basketball game. So some improvements needed there, but there's definite opportunity for basketball in Europe. And beyond that, he talked about getting franchises in NBA Africa. They may be going to market soon, selling some of those franchises. But for Europe, he kind of talked about that 500 million to $1 billion range for one of the clubs. So it's going to be one of the bigger names that you recognize from the soccer side getting in on NBA Europe. Well, like I said, it was a fantastic event for Dealmakers at the Marriott Marquis in Times Square. Tonight at the Hard Rock Hotel, we're going to have our celebration for New Voices Under 30. Going to be a great event. Looking forward to seeing everyone who's able to come by that celebration. Also, this week on the SBJ Sports Media Podcast, we have Amazon Prime Video's Charlie Neiman talking about the start to the NBA package on Amazon, also the NFL, what they have planned for Black Friday, and more. Plus, I get into MLB's new deals with NBC, ESPN, and Netflix, and YouTube's deal with Disney, that carriage deal coming to a close. So, for Rob Schaefer, Bret McCormick, Joe Lemire, I'm Austin Karp. This has been your Morning Buzzcast for Thursday, November 20th. Hope everyone has a fantastic day. Make good choices out there, and we'll talk to you all again tomorrow.